Okay, so Jacob's telling us how he got into a deep self-care session and it was transformational and opening. And what happened?
Well, so I've been wait just a second for me. I'm gonna do
Okay. So this is where I come in and I say things that fill the space and the time until he comes back in. But it's great to be with y'all. We've been doing this for over a couple months now. And it's been an an evolving journey. And I think that I was talking last time about how there was more of an aliveness and a more of a being in the moment and being present, and how we're kind of communicating and verbalizing what we're experientially opening to together in a unified field more and more, and how that then permeates out into the people who are listening on the playback and the recordings. And so it's like there's kind of like two levels. It's like we're talking about something, conceptually, and we're opening to something experientially. And the more important part is what we're opening to experientially, and what we're talking about conceptually is almost like a surface level. It kind of grabs the attention enough to kind of go into the deeper level together. So that's really the intention here, is just to be open and available to the moment. And we usually start with a prayer, which we did not do today. So maybe we'll do that right now. Have a little prayer for everybody. Let's just um, take a deep breath, and may we be available this evening to be channels of love and wisdom, intelligence, healing, sharing our unique insights, and also listening deeply from a field of presence to receive all that's available for us to learn, to grow, to evolve, to awaken in our consciousness, to have the epiphanies we're called to have, to release all that we're called to release, to heal all that we're called to heal, to open to all that we're called to open to, and to be fully available to follow the divine will, which is the highest will beyond the own egoic will. Amen.
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 Woo.
So that's what we're doing here. And then it's kind of a space to just see what opens, see what evolves. Want to have it be more interactive tonight, be more available to people's questions, comments, reflections. We got Will coming in, so that's always great to see. But yeah, you want to share anything, Jacob, or if you don't want to, it's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I would love to.
All right.
Um, so first time getting like taking care of myself really as far as my body and mind go. Today I had chiropractor at 3. Um, First time doing this since before the hurricane and all the natural disaster here in Western North Carolina. And I've been really tense and closed up and heavy in my body. And chiropractor this afternoon at 3, and then like an impromptu acupuncture session with a new acupuncturist. And I laid on a heated jade roller bed and got needles um, all over my body, and this really nice like muscle rub oil on my neck and shoulders, and just was able to drop into this really deep like meditative like space with God. And many of my friends and people that know me know that I've been on a journey of like self-care. And um so I started thinking while I'm laying on this bed, taking really good care of myself. And many of you know that I want to help ignite people's spark in their own souls, much like my spark has been ignited. And I'm kind of like just now trying to figure out that journey. And anyways, it became very clear to me, um, this guidance from God, like I'm the self care mentor, like life coach. Like I remembered that most of my like huge transformations and this great connection with God started happening when I really started taking care of myself, which initially started 5 years ago working with Brian and like giving myself that hour a week in like therapy and mentorship and then I started doing acupuncture and then I started eating better to the highest quality foods and then I started getting massages and acupuncture or body work and chiropractor and all this stuff like sauna time, hot tub time. If I need a day off work in the middle of the week, I take the day off and go paddleboard on the lake and soak up the sun or go for a hike with friends. So tuning into my needs first, and then also this level of gratitude um, for not like existing in a place of hell anymore and like discovering this journey of my highest and best version of myself. And it's through these things that I'm realizing that. And so that's what I want to do for other people. I want to do these things with my friends, with my clients, with the people that I'm wanting to help, the people that are wanting help from me. So my question is like, do you want to explore this journey in a unique way for yourself? Like in uh doing like sessions in the sauna and sessions in the hot tub and sessions getting a massage and getting acupuncture, laying on this heated jade roller bed and just like really taking good care of yourself. And um, so self care leads to self realization for me in my case, which led to self activation, which can lead to self actualization. So you remember yourself and you actualize fully the best version of yourself. And so that's just kind of my experience today. Um, and I'm just feeling like really super tuned in, super connected to God, and super grateful for this guidance, super grateful for this journey that I'm on and this place that I'm in, this experience that I'm having now. Uh, so I'm really glad to be here and share this special moment with you guys in the circle.
Sorry, I was on mute. I was saying thank you for sharing.
Mm.
Appreciate it. Yeah, there's a lot there to reflect on, but I want to give anybody else a chance that wants to share as well. Anybody that wants to introduce themselves or say hi or ask a question or reflect on what Jacob shared. And like I said, the intention of making it more interactive this evening. And he says, love that, Jacob. I've always found God most when I'm embodied too. Yes, amen.
God made the body.
Exactly. Exactly. So we have all of the intelligence inside us. We have all the answers inside us. We have access to all the guidance, all the direction. It's like a good way to think of it is like the the body like the most finely tuned antenna, you know. It can receive the signal, so clearly and so precisely, but when the body gets rigid and tight and stuck and restricted and constricted, then it can't receive the signal, you know. So I think this is very interesting how a lot of religions and religious traditions and churches kind of went like anti-body, like like the body's bad or the body is some impediment to God, um, which it could be if you get it could be, but primarily it's the actual, it's the vessel, it's the antenna to receive the transmission, quite literally. And the only way to receive the transmission is to purify and clean the vessel and have the vessel optimal and vital and awake and alive and aware, and most importantly relaxed. So it's like have the vessel relaxed and open, and then also awake and alive at the same time. And if you do that, and you do it by making space for it, making it a priority. So one of the things that's interesting when Jacob's talking is, some people will hear that and be like, oh, well, that's self-absorption. There's other people that need help. But it's like that kind of mentality is missing the point. It's like you can only help people if you are able to help people. Like if you're here, and how do I say this? It's like that old saying of like if someone's in a hole, you have to be outside the hole and be able to give them a hand to help them out. But if you're in the same hole that they are, you can't help them get out of the hole, right? It's kind of like that. So it's like to take care of yourself, to take care of your body, to take care of your mind, to take care of your heart, to take care of the system that you are in, and to make that a priority allows you to be um, awake, allows you to be a clear vessel for God's love, God's intelligence to flow through you and be a benefit to the world. So that always will come first. And then the second actually comes very naturally, I would say. I think that we're naturally designed to want to help, to want to be supportive, to want to care. That's our natural state. So when the body is relaxed and open and alive and vital, that's love is what's going to flow through. Um, when the body's when I say body, I also mean the mind, the heart, the emotional intelligence. When it's in a distorted state, then that's when what looks like hatred or what looks like wanting to hurt others, that's what comes out in those moments. So, but it comes back to that fundamental realization of what is at the heart of creation, right? So if you recognize that there is this loving presence, which we call God, at the heart of creation, then you want to do everything you can to be a vessel for that loving presence to shine through you and flow through you. But if you don't recognize that and realize that, then you're kind of like, oh, I don't know, maybe something bad will happen if I'm relaxed, you know, maybe something wrong will happen. But the more that you kind of go on this journey, and it is really like a relationship, like any kind of human relationship, like the more you kind of take a step and open and trust, and the more that you realize it's okay to be safe and open and to trust, you know. But you have to be able to, it's like when the mind is quiet and the heart is open, you're able to access this most natural essence, which is the divine, the divine intelligence to flow through you. And the more you recognize it, the more you have confidence in it, and the more you're able to trust in it, and you're able to just relax into the moment. Like we were talking about last week, confidence really comes from being in the moment, being able to relax in the moment and trust God in the moment, and trust God to flow through you in the moment, and to be um, guiding you moment by moment. It's not so much something that's built on the past. Um, I think that this highest level of confidence is built on being an openness to the present moment. And there's like a creative intelligence that's able to flow through in the moment when you're available and you're quiet and you're open. And that's where this is where the magic and the miracles happen. And then what's super exciting is to do it with a group, and that's kind of the exploration that we're on, the journey that we're on, is to open up to this field together. And Jesus said, when two or more are gathered in my name, I am present, right? So it's like we're activating and amplifying the field more and more by being present and relaxing and opening into this space together, and being available for what's to come through and what's to shine through us together. What do you want to say? Will, I know you want to say something.
It's great to be here with you
Yeah,
guys.
it's great to be here.
Um, what keeps coming to mind as you guys are talking is just that age-old wisdom of live your life like a prayer,
Yeah.
which I kind of keep hearing as kind of an attitude in the present moment of contemplating God's presence with us and how that aids self-care and that voice of love is like I guess it becomes like a guide. It's something that can direct us. Tell us where to go or how to move. It's a sort of a way of trusting in love's voice, I guess, rather than the sort of a conditioned voice. So, yeah, I just love that wisdom. Live one's life as a prayer in terms of developing a conscious relationship to prayer and then the response that occurs and then acting on that and seeing what comes of it and seeing that, our higher self, the Holy Spirit knows a lot more than our rational mind sometimes, and that's a wonderful way to walk it. Like, can bring a sort of like a transfer in identity to like less relying on our own self to like more kind of the wholeness of ourselves. So
Mm,
I love what you guys are saying, and yeah, it's nice to share the present moment with you.
mm. How would you define prayer?
Well, I really on it deepens as we like walk on the spiritual journey, right?
Hmm.
Um, I think we're praying constantly by our thoughts what we want.
Mm,
I think everything kind of consciously created is sort of like a prayer because it's, a desire in the mind which automatically, extends into the universe, starts attracting those experiences on some level. So, yeah, I think of prayer as the beginning of like the awareness of how what the mind is, the mind of God, and then our mind within that, and developing that conscious link, strengthening it. Um, and I think it deepens as we start to pray for, things that are a little like beyond just our individual self and our like for the collective. Or I think that's where I've experienced it being much more strong, because it seems to be like amplified and because yeah, we're the oneness principle, it's like God is strengthened by the or is the whole. So as we extend beyond ourselves and care for others, then prayer grows into a mightier force. And then I also like what the Course in Miracles talks about in terms of a really deep level of prayer is just resting within our own heart or the heart of creation and expressing gratitude to God for making us safe and creating us eternally and innocent and at peace and guided by his love and and expressing that maybe with words or song or just being with that. I think that's how that deepest layer of kind of identity and soul becomes fortified through that active prayer, and then can we'll live it more and we'll live it beyond our physical body. And yeah, but prayer is life.
mm,
I mean, every yeah, because all thoughts are communicating on some level, communicating to ourselves, communicating to something. What else do we think there is? I mean, all thought. That's what I think is so cool about what we're learning and as humans about just the communication of thought. Maybe it's Joshua says something in some New Age teachings that thought is like immediately everywhere in the mind of God. So, kind of thinking on these quantum levels with what prayer could really entail is a really humbling, just start to shift my own mind from thinking that my mind's in my brain by itself, maybe connecting to God to actually we're all in a mind and, this is all conscious and prayer is instant and, that's a much higher level of awareness in terms of coming into what that implies. But yeah, I'm amazed by it. I'm grateful to learn with you guys. It's cool to think about.
beautiful. I think also just want to add to that. I think prayer is because there's prayer of like, give me this or I want that. There's that kind of prayer. And then there's prayer of like a dialogue with the all-knowing or the pervading wisdom, right? Which is part of what God is. Um, so prayer is, I think it's wanting to know the truth.
Hmm.
Um, because if you're kind of like wanting an answer, but you're wanting you have kind of a self-centered, like I wanted to look a certain way, I want to craft it a certain way from my own ego,
Hmm.
and that's not really true prayer, right? So like true prayer is like the humility of
Hmm.
I'm open to whatever the answer is. I don't know what the
Hmm.
truth is.
Hmm.
Show me what the truth is here.
Mm. Yeah, that reminds me, I think Jesus talked a lot about just kind of living in that prayer for what was God's will, just sort
Yeah,
of what is your will in this moment,
exactly.
which is it's humbling because yeah, I mean, he would know better, what is really helpful. And
Well,
for
you
me,
and
that's really that's funny. That shut me up a lot because a lot of times I feel like God's will is just me not extending my own will, which so often is I know I'm right or you should do this or blah blah blah. It's just like, all right.
yeah, I think you learn by experience. Like you learn,
Mhm,
you get humbled by experience.
mhm,
The ego thinks it knows best, thinks it knows the way it's supposed to go, and um, and then there's a lot of suffering that ensues, and and a lot, if you keep going on that path, you get to like a crisis point. Like I was talking with somebody today about that kind of rock bottom moment,
mhm,
where it's like, I just can't do it. I can't go this direction anymore. Like I can't do
mhm,
this anymore. And there's like a sense of like surrender or giving up, which
mhm,
is like the ego surrendering and giving
mhm,
up and being like, I can't, I don't know what to, and it's like that moment is when um that that light can enter that higher support, which was always there anyway, but we weren't willing to receive it
mhm.
because we were too arrogant, too cocky. Um, Jacob was bringing up this metaphor today. You may have heard it before. So the idea is that you're walking with there's a two sets of footprints in the sand, and you're
Mhm.
walking with God, and then there's one set of footprints, and it's like the sense of like, yeah, but you know that I was alone and you weren't there for me then. And then God's like, no, I was actually carrying you in those moments. It's powerful.
It is
Yeah.
powerful, and it's also, I mean, the ego is really an interesting experience, that it takes people oftentimes great suffering before that identity is able to be released. I mean, it's really humbling because in some ways we seem to be in control of it, but in other ways it's kind of beyond one because that is our identity until by grace it seems to shift. So it's
Hmm.
always something that I'm just amazed by and grateful that grace is showing me more and more people that you know, just when they thought things were, so hard or breaking apart, they did experience God in a really real way. And oftentimes that's the deepest experience that we have of God. So it's a deep paradox there.
The
It's like
breakdown is the
to
breakthrough.
break through. So, which is good to talk about because breakdowns happen, So to know that it can offer you a whole new sense of identity is I don't know, makes it easier maybe if we know that as a collective, because I know that we're not the only ones going through that. We're all sharing in similar ways. So to allow that breakdown and say, okay, I let that whatever needs to crumble, I can keep letting it crumble. Um,
I think everything needs to crumble. Like
well,
I don't mean like necessarily externally, but I mean internally.
yeah,
Like anything that you're holding on to, anything that you
right,
you think is your anchor,
right.
is not. you know?
Right. That's a different teaching than, what we kind of learned growing up. But I think that that's really important as we get older because there is nothing really to hold on to within our own ego. It's lacking. I guess that's
Yeah.
what defines the limited paradigm of the human experience, is that we go on thinking that our judgment is correct and helpful. And, you know, we get to a certain point, realize that all that was a very small experience, I think, or one that leads to dead ends and can be really frustrating. But that's also, yeah, it's part of I guess, part of the humble lesson with that. Hmm. Love seeing you by the firelight, Jacob.
Yeah, good place to be. It's cooling off here, so figured I'd light a fire for us all.
Man, I've been comforted by it in Asheville for the last 2 weeks for sure, and I think a lot of souls have. There's something about it, in terms of processing grief or kindling a spark in the darkness.
That's the idea behind this whole project. The circle is the idea of like the circle around the fire, you
The
know,
fire being God's
the,
light and
the
love.
circle in the middle. Yep. I mean the fire in the middle. Yeah. And a
Oh
circle
yeah,
around it.
the picture. Yeah, the
Yeah.
circle.
That's why there's a little fire in the middle and around it.
Perfect.
So we're getting lit up
Yeah.
by the
Well, I
fire.
mean, that correlates to what you were just speaking to, Brian, that you think everything needs to kind of burn or crumble. It's like the fire is the
Well,
purifier.
when I say everything needs to, I don't mean like, oh, try to make it burn up. I think that what
No,
happens,
inner
what,
idols do need to burn.
yeah, but we don't need to do it. We shouldn't even try to do it.
True.
It'll happen like naturally and effortlessly
Right.
because what happens is like we're trying to find Joshua was in our mastermind. He used this term on like anchor points, right? So we're trying to find
Mhm.
anchor points. We're trying to anchor ourselves in things that are impermanent. Buddha is actually really good in this point too, right? Of not being attached to things that are impermanent. I
Mhm.
think that's a universal teaching. So, um, but there's a lot of things that seem like they're permanent, but they're actually not permanent, like houses and relationships and family members and money and bank accounts and like all of these things are not permanent and they're going to be gone. The biggest one being the body, this actual human body is going to be gone, right? So I think that's the primary spiritual teaching that's universal is like don't
Mhm.
identify with this body because you're not the body. Um, so that the more that you awaken to that and you realize that, then you you just you're aligned with the truth. Go back to the truth, right? You're aligned with the truth that there's a temporary nature in everything that you're noticing and you're experiencing. And there's only one thing, which isn't actually a thing in the entire universe that is permanent, that is unchanging, that is eternal, that is timeless. And it's beyond name, it's beyond form, it's beyond definition, but you can call it God, right? And it's like this like um timeless loving presence that is the truth of who we really are. And that's where you want to anchor yourself, you know? But then it's like, well, how do I do that? Because I can't see it, I can't smell it, I can't I can't hear it. Um, but it's like it's that which transcends all, but also includes all, right? So it's like I like to use that word like holistic or whole. So it's like the more your consciousness, um, it's hard to even put a word to it, but your conscious kind of opens up more, and you're able to recognize that this love that you've been looking for, this truth that you've been looking for, this essence of who you are is actually is actually present here and now. It's definitely the most amazing thing about this life is like heaven is now.
Yeah. Letting go of trying to comprehend it with the mind.
Exactly.
There is none of that.
Yep. Because if you try to comprehend something, the only thing you comprehend, but
Brian,
you can comprehend things with the mind, but you can only comprehend things or
Yes.
concepts or ideas which are temporary, you know?
Brian, do you think one has to kind of give up attachment to everything in order to experience that state like consistently?
Nothing real can be threatened, Jackie. Yes. Of course, the miracles. Sorry, can you say that one more time, Will? I know it was good, that question.
I was just kind of posing the thought like do you think one has to give up most of their attachments to things to experience that state of love like
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
consistently?
what I think Jesus said that pretty explicitly, you know.
Hmm. I think
Um,
that's an interesting thing to explore because
yeah, when he encounters that
um
he encounters this guy on the road and um he's like I don't remember the exact out. Basically, the guy's like a wealthy man and
mhm,
he's like, I wanna, I wanna enter the kingdom of heaven. He's like, would you get to give up everything and follow me? And the guy's like, oh, I can't do that.
mhm.
You but it
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
mean it doesn't mean like it's an inner
inner, right,
consciousness, right?
right.
Because there's also stories like I've which is a good point. There's people that um kind of the ascetic life and
Hmm.
they give up everything materially, but then there's a lot of ego there,
Right,
like
right.
I'm better than everybody else, you know,
Right. It's
right?
giving
So
up
it's
all attitudes, all beliefs, like the
yeah,
attachments, but not necessarily the physical possessions, because those are external, but maybe one's attachment to them or necessity, because
yeah,
God's our source.
yeah,
And yeah, our treasure is not in this world because,
yeah. And I think
yeah.
we all have a different role to play. Well,
Hmm.
I know we do. We all have a different
We
role to
do,
play
you're
in the
right.
world, right?
Hmm.
So some people's role might require like a lot of resources to be of service to the
Hmm.
world.
Hmm.
Some people's role might require almost no resources to be of service to the world, right? So that's where it's like you can't really judge because, you
True.
know,
And some people's role might be to acquire a lot of resources, then go through the soul lesson of having them taken away.
for
And that's
sure,
also the perfect dance of God learning in this world.
for sure. Yeah,
Been there.
I think to acquire resources as like an egoic status symbol is a mistake, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
that will be learned sooner or later. It's not going to bring happiness and fulfillment,
Right.
you know. So I think the
It
only
doesn't.
reason to acquire resources would be to be of service to other people,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
But for some people they have a big role with lots of resources, a big project that has lots of
Hmm.
resources, and other people, they can be living in living by a river in a, you know, in a canopy and be blissed out.
Hmm. But the quality of their thoughts are shining on the whole world,
That's
and we're grateful to them for that.
exactly. That's the key is the inner consciousness,
Hmm.
That's the key is the consciousness. And yeah,
Hmm. That's where it starts.
I think there's definitely people that um Eckhart Tolle calls them the frequency holders, right? So there's people that don't say much in words. Maybe they never wrote anything down. Maybe they don't talk to that many people, but their vibration is just healing so many people across the energetic grid,
Mm.
that presence
Hmm.
and they'll never get like probably never get acknowledged for it or and they don't need to. They don't care about getting acknowledged for it,
Mm.
right? So I
Till
think
they
that
get back
that's
to heaven, all the angels are
well,
like, yes.
I think they're in heaven,
Yeah, that's a
It's
good
like
point.
they're yeah, they're in it. And I think that when we're in the we're st I this is interesting. Okay, so I think that we're still in a very um masculine way of seeing the world, in our current paradigm. So there's this kind of idea that like if it's not the masculine way, then you're not like doing something, you know.
Mm.
Right? I think
Mm.
the masculine way tends to get more the attention. It tends to be more overt, direct. It's like it's easy to see. where the feminine way you don't necessarily see it. Um, you know, I don't want to if you think of the male and female genitals, it kind of explains it, right? So, um, so, so the feminine can be like healing, be quietly in prayer and like vibrationally healing like the entire universe and holding that frequency. And nobody's gonna know it or appreciate it unless they can really have eyes to see it, you
Hmm.
know, um,
Feel it, or the
or or
feeling of
or, or to
emotion.
feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's good. It's good to acknowledge that and to honor that and appreciate that. Um, because otherwise it's just kind of like an egoic thing of everybody wanting to get attention for for their virtue signaling, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm.
You want to share anything, Daniel? You want to say hello, introduce yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me this time?
I hear you. Yep.
Cool. Don't know what's wrong with my other computer. Um, yeah, nice to be here. Yeah, I'm Daniel or Dan,
Hmm.
an Australian, as you can hear.
You're in
Been living in.
Australia?
I'm. I am an Australian.
Okay. Oh,
I'm
you're in.
in Minnesota.
Okay. We had a little communication on Telegram. Is that right?
We did. We
Okay.
did.
Got it.
Yes. So, um, always lived in Australia my whole life, but married to a Minnesotan for 14 years, and we have three kids, and with everything that happened with Australia during COVID, we thought we would leave
Hmm.
and
Wow.
come, at least theoretically, a more free country.
Hmm.
And we came to Minnesota because my wife's family's here, but we never intended to stay. So
Hmm.
I sort of got connected with you guys through my hunt of trying to connect with folks in the Western North Carolina ish kind of that region because that's where we're thinking of moving to ultimately. Um, Although that was before everything that's gone on with the hurricane and everything happened, and um, yeah, sort of feeling for you guys. I don't know if you're all there, but it's been a whole different thing. But yes, we're in Minnesota currently.
Great. Great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
welcome.
Jeff,
And
any?
I suppose I could add as well. My background is I'm a couples counselor, and I've had a um, off and on, but a long history with sort of men's work and these
Hmm.
types of things, and um, wanting to do that more, wanting to engage with that more, wanting to reconnect with all that. And so it's
Yep.
exciting to see what you're doing, Brian, and it's encouraging to see what you're doing, and um, yeah, no, it's really good.
Thank you. Any reflections, Jeff?
Um, I mean, not really. No, I'm just grateful to be here and just listening to you and Will's conversation there.
Me and Will, we can talk for hours.
Yeah, I like it.
And we have. And we shall again.
Oh man. You're gonna use words to talk about something. It's good to see you, Jeff.
Yeah, you
Need to
too,
give you a
Will.
call. Yeah, man. Yeah. I was hoping to hear, I was liking how you were saying how you were interested in non-duality, but like with the kind of Christian slant on it. Like, are you reading anything or kind of studying anything actively?
The last things I've read have all been David Hawkins. I've have read a lot of Marshall David Marshall
Hey,
Davis's
I was
books.
thinking let's
Yeah.
get Marshall Davis on here.
Let's
Oh
do
yeah.
it. That'd be sweet.
I'll
That'd
email
be
him.
sweet.
Yes.
Cool.
That'd be great.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've read almost all of his books. That was a while ago. I was just pumping them out there for a while. They're all real
Nice.
short too.
Mm,
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
that's so much of the intention here really is um it's so hard to put this stuff in words, but it's like opening up to the non-dual realization through Christ as the bridge,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
That
Yes.
that was really my that was really my when I talked about this encounter with Jesus that I had a couple years ago, that was really the message was like, clarify the distortions of what's being shared.
Mm.
I was like, okay, I'll do my best.
It's a big mission right now. I feel like
Yeah.
I see so many souls like working to do that, and then also working um, through the purification process, to become more Christ-like. And
Yep.
it's beautiful. It's quite a time on the journey right now. I just there's a
There's
lot, but I
a lot
don't
of a
know how to
lot.
put the words to it. It's a lot to feel and process. I mean the challenge is implies the journey, right? Where there's challenge, there's need for growth, there's, opportunity for growth. So
Mhm.
I'm grateful always being with you guys. It helps, just remind me of the opportunity in it. And I'm grateful for fellowship in that. Um, because yeah, we are all influence each other and are supported by each other. And yeah, I think learning and going through similar things, or I feel that in the collective um, body a lot right now, especially in Asheville, just kind of having a near death experience, and so people needing to root into like what is real, so and spirit, is that real thing, but it's intangible, so it's cool to just talk about it together, talk about ways to feel it, encourage it in each other so we can all know it and reflect it to each other more clearly, and be that self same light, because I do see that is, we all show each other the divine presence. So the more that we can remember and encourage that in each other, it's, I don't know, that's the vision that I see for the world. It's just everybody waking up and remembering God instead of what else, the other things we were thinking about.
Right. What's I think what's interesting is it's so simple and
Hmm.
yet it is complex in a way too. But
Well, it
um
must be
but
because
it
it
but in
seems
that
to take
complexity
10,000 lifetimes.
the simplicity gets lost,
Hmm.
right? So it's so simple at its core. Not to say I don't mean simple like oh anybody can do it. It's so easy. Just do ba ba ba. Do steps one, two, three.
Hmm.
It's it's like prior to any steps.
Right. But to me, to get to that place that can be challenging is that it's the simplicity of a choice to value only spirit rather than my prior valuation, which was of my egoic identity.
And the and the
And
and the and the 3D physical world,
right, and all of that. Yeah. Yeah, everything I'd seen in them.
which I think ultimately is seen as an illusion.
Well, that's powerful to consider.
It's a tricky word to use because then people go to like, oh, well, then I'm gonna just go. And then we're back to like ignoring the body and all this kind of stuff, right? Which is not what I mean.
Right. Well,
Um,
I do
it's
see it's an
it's
illusion on certain levels for sure.
it's a temporary manifestation that's
Hmm.
not going to last,
Right.
So it's an
That's
illusion in
one
that
way.
sense.
Hmm. I
So
also,
so
it could be an illusion the way we use it because our thoughts define how we interact with something, you know? So if we're calling something something and making up a whole story about it, that could also be sort of illusory in terms of how we're personally relating to it. Maybe there's many layers of what seems to be unreal kind of things occurring.
but I would say that I think it's actually not a choice. That's why I said the illusionary part is I think it's actually just seeing clearly. So when you see
To beyond
clearly,
choice. Uh-huh.
yeah, when you see clearly what is real, like
Mm-hmm.
that quote that Jackie shared, nothing real can be threatened,
Mm-hmm.
nothing unreal exists, right? So when you see it's like basically seeing what's real and what's not real. So
Mm-hmm.
when you see that what that which is unreal is that which can be threatened, which is everything in this world, and
Mm-hmm.
that which is unreal, that which is real is that which cannot be threatened.
Which
So
is
then
spirit or mind or light or
I
consciousness.
don't think you I think it's beyond words, right? I think actually reading
It is, but
David Hawkins is one of the best I've
Mhm.
ever seen at articulating this.
Mhm.
You know, the way he can put the words you know, yeah, the eternal
Mhm.
presence, it's words he uses like that,
Mhm.
right? But the
Mhm.
thing is, whatever words you use, this is why people have so much issue with the word God, right? A lot
Mhm.
of people in here before saying, I don't like the word God. Why do you use the word God? You know, so the reason people don't like it is because the word creates an image of something, and then people attach to the image, but the image, it's a word that actually has no, it's doesn't actually have any image. That's the point. You know, but people get an image. So whatever word we use, even if I say like loving presence, then there's people will
Mhm.
create an image and be like, well, no, it means this. No, it means this, you know. So it's like how what's the word for something that has no image?
Isness.
Yeah, I mean that it's
It's
like
and thusness.
you're getting it. It's like you start to realize that it's just poetry.
I
You know,
get. I mean,
it's just poetry. You're using words to point to something that you can't put into words. But somehow I think if someone's coming from that, this is where I think David Hawkins, because I think about David Hawkins is like he's an academic, but he also
Mhm.
is experientially open to what he's talking about.
Mhm.
So there's something felt behind the words, and that's the intention here, right? Is like to be able to feel beyond the words. It's like, okay, they're using a bunch of words, but I can feel something beyond the words. And I know this real, you know, and I want to open up to this more, this presence that's here.
Amen.
Amen. Jackie's got some comments here. Releasing the attachment sets you free of whatever you are grasping. Holding the frequency means at least you're not part of the problem and you're grounding others. Illusion as in created from our own thoughts. Nice. Yeah. That's a good definition actually. Illusion created from our own thoughts, which pretty much everything's created from our from our own thoughts. Actually, you know, when we're honest with ourselves. Reality is what's left after we release our own epic spin on it. It goes back to source before we learn to label everything from Ken Wilber. Yeah.
Mhm.
Nice, Jackie. Thanks for the chat contributions.
I just looked up David Hawkins because I'm not familiar. But could you say a bit more about who David Hawkins is and
Yeah.
what your
Dr. David Hawkins.
right?
Um,
I just heard you mention Wilbur, so I have a reference there if there's any crossover. Uh,
say that again.
I said I know Ken Wilbur,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
kind
So
of crossover.
Ken Wilber has a scale of consciousness, right? David Hawkins also has a scale of consciousness, and we actually talked about his scale of consciousness. What was that one called? The 10 levels of Christianity. So basically, I took his scale of consciousness and I projected it onto like how you could break down the levels of Christianity. So um, I can maybe we can find it online and pull it up. But basically, he has these different levels from a scale from 0 to 1,000, and the lowest levels are like shame and guilt and fear and these kind of things, right? And the highest levels being love and joy and enlightenment. But you can actually break down these different levels of Christianity where it's like, oh yeah, there's like guilt-based Christianity and shame-based Christianity and fear-based Christianity. And this is the Christianity that many people, maybe the majority of people, are familiar with. Um, but then there's these like, and that was what I was familiar with. But then as I like kind of awakened and had this encounter with Jesus and this spiritual experience, I'm like, oh, there's this other thing that is also exists. And it's like this pure love and joy and bliss and peace and serenity. And there's which to me is like the actual, and to David Hawkins is actually the true transmission of Jesus. Um, but he talks about he kind of talks about I guess non-dual consciousness. So he's not a necessarily a Christian based teacher, but he does include Jesus and Jesus's teachings. Um, so what else can I say about him? Yeah, just that he had his own powerful experiences of awakening, which he talks about in his books, and then um, he's writing about that what his realizations are and the different levels of consciousness that you ascend through. And he talks about you know, I don't necessarily take everything he says verbatim, but I think it's like a nice map for me because he'll go down to like very like, oh, this guy in history calibrates at this exact number of consciousness. I can't say if that's like true or not, but I find it to be like a helpful model of just kind of like what the ascending levels of consciousness are and like where we're called to go on this path, and maybe where we've been and what we could potentially like um what we could potentially fall back into, if we're not conscious and aware.
I
But
think
it's really,
for me,
what's that?
I think is it called the Hawkins scale?
I haven't heard it called that. He
I
calls
think
it
I've seen it about. I just didn't know the guy behind it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
Is it
I think he was really
Atrium?
helpful.
Sorry, go on.
I was saying he as a scientist rarely has spiritual information been portrayed as specifically kind of within a scientific paradigm. His work, like for certain people, it really is helpful for them because just the way their mind works, like it's just really it's a wonderful like he kind of has some groundbreaking concepts in terms of what life is and then being able to portray it just very specifically. It's like talking to a guru, but having it be in a little bit more of an academic format is really helpful. And I highly recommend reading a couple of his books, like The Eye of the Eye, from which nothing is hidden, which I found in an Astral bookstore like 20 years ago. Thank you, Asheville. But that one's really amazing. He's got like 10 that he's written, and a lot of folks have also really enjoyed his 10th book is called Letting Go. And that one's, I think, helpful in psychotherapy and is not quite as spiritually, radical, which some of the first books are really radical.
yeah,
But he admits that. He says, this is not for anybody like the path of enlightenment is a full commitment. It's total choice, takes
Mm.
everything, and it's not for the I think he calls it the weak of heart. Anyway, it's really wonderful work. Highly recommend diving into some of it, or at least just checking it out, because it was recent. He wrote throughout the 80s and 90s and then passed away in 2012, where his body dropped, as they say in the spiritual circles.
yeah. So he was a I get apparently very successful psychiatrist and has a real understanding, a real understanding of psychology. So kind of brings that into his articulation of the evolution
Hmm.
of consciousness.
Hmm. Yeah, he also explained that all behavior starts in consciousness and then was kind of helping people understand where it's coming from. Said these we're born in a certain level of consciousness, and that's why some people might see the world and act in a certain way
Yeah.
versus another person. Which is just, it's helpful to think that way in terms of becoming a more compassionate human being. Like,
Yep. Yeah.
why are these people like this? I know it's really helped me because if you can understand, understanding becomes love. It's like we can relax and trust God ultimately. But I mean, for the academic mind right now, it can be really helpful to have his work help me, like, cracked my mind open. It's just
Hmm.
like, holy moly, should teach this in college. It
Mm.
doesn't matter what you're studying.
Yeah,
You
I
learn
think of
more.
this life like a school, and everybody's in a different grade, you
Hmm.
know, everybody's learning their different lessons. And it does really help to be accepting and compassionate of, everybody's is at where they're at. And
And down in the dumps is dark.
yeah, and also like people have, if you don't learn the lesson, then you fail the class and you have to take the class over and over and over until you pass, you learn the lesson and you pass the test.
But there is no failure in the mind of God because it's infinite and he's always there to give us a new chance, a new option, I mean,
Yep.
I that's something I believe. And I mean, this actually reminds me of this is a big subject, but so is there eternal hell, or does God reach his hand out to people in hell even if they're like down there, they're like,
Yeah.
Lord,
Good.
I'd like to genuinely get out of here.
That's
Do we
one of
think
that.
that
Yeah, that's a good topic, because that's one of my um realizations that I've felt guided to share is like, no, there's not any eternal hell, basically.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Because hell is part of the, okay, hell, when you're in hell, you're in the illusion, right? You'd have to be you can't be in reality and be in hell. It doesn't make any sense. So you'd
Right,
have to,
right,
you
right,
would have
right,
to be in the illusion.
right.
So the illusion by definition is not permanent. So then you can't be there permanently. But when you're but this is
It's
why
gonna go on for a very
this
long
is
time.
this is no, but this is why hell hurts, is so painful, because when you're in it, it feels like you're going to be in there forever.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like it feels like
yeah.
this is going to go on forever. I can't get out. That's why it's hell.
Hmm.
But it's like it's not really real.
Yeah, it's not absolute. It's like a suburb in God's mind, like, but very far away from the loving
Well,
center.
it's like God never left you ever.
Right.
You left God.
And then ask for a world to reflect your damned reflection and call it
Yeah.
hell and pretend it's away from him and that he put you there, but it was actually by your own choice. Ultimately, maybe, I mean, it's a
Yeah. So
deep. Okay.
I was having a conversation with Brian this morning. Kind of like my version of hell and suffering and um just not wanting to live anymore, thinking that this was forever. Like, wow, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. And I
Yeah.
don't want to live the rest of my life. I want to die. Like, I don't want to wake up tomorrow and continue living in this same loop of hell. And then realize, and then like coming out, like being raised in a traditional like Baptist church and then being pushed away from that and ending up in hell and then being called out of that hell. And when I started being called out of the hell, I couldn't even say the word God. Like I was borderline atheist. And now, where I'm at now, and having um, gotten here, I realize I'm able to see that it was God the whole time, like pulling me out of hell, even when I couldn't even acknowledge God or say the word God.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think we're all designed for heaven.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Mm.
Oh
Like
yeah.
everybody.
Me
That's where
too, baby.
everybody ends
Oh, yeah.
up.
Every
Yep.
soul.
But you have to feel it's like your consciousness has to vibrationally align with that reality to be able to experience it, which is available to all of us. Again, it's also available to all of us. But
Mhm.
it's a fascinating thing because like Jacob and I have talked and it's like, okay, why why have you, Jacob, and many people, Jeff and other people, like why are some people making these like massive transformations in their life and opening up and to making these great changes, and other people don't seem to want to? Like the opportunity is there, but they like turn away from it.
Mm.
Um, and so there's something in like you have to feel some sense of like self-worth or self-love,
Mhm.
but you feel like you're deserving of it. You're deserving of all the goodness, all the riches, all the beauty, all the miracles that like God has for all of us.
Mm.
But the mind gets in this like twisted state where it doesn't feel like it feels like, oh, I deserve to suffer. I deserve to be punished. I deserve to be, I'm a bad person.
Mhm.
And that's where like free will is so interesting. And it's so seems so real, right? So God's
Mhm.
like, the idea, like when I started like tuning into like Christian terminology, right? The idea is like, well, God loves you so much that like you have free will. And if you want to suffer, God's like, well, I don't want that for you. But if you want to experience that, that's your free will to experience that. If you want to try that out, try it out.
Mhm.
I'm here when you're tired of it.
Go there so you can remember heaven.
You know what's funny about that, you guys, is that to me is, I mean, that's our default state in this world, like we're, with the exception of like a few maybe rare monks, like everybody I know that was born into kind of some kind of suffering of, like perceiving themselves as a separate will from him, which I guess would be the very premise of that suffering. And then it's an interesting, I mean, to me, that's like when I was growing up, that was who I am. Like I am my own will, which I've come to discover that's actually separation,
Yep.
which
Yep.
I was celebrating, but that's what I was grown up in, and everything in my culture reinforced that, on a level. Except maybe, I mean, Christianity was probably trying to help, but like it was so deep in my own psyche and in the world that I just couldn't recognize it for what it is. And it is still like, it feels like the default energy of this world. And it takes either like grace or like good karma or like some maturity as a soul to feel that self-worth, or feel the disgust with the ego and be like, enough of this. This thing is
Mhm.
like, tired of all
I'm
those vibrations or whatever it may be that occurs. But maybe as a collective, we're heating it up right now too. We're all kind of make clearer that choice and be like, all right, everything except the will of God is quite destructive. Maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. Jackie, you want to share?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Um, Gosh, between the time I raised my hand, so many things were said, so I don't know where I'm at. But
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
the thing is, I think that's where I hesitate to call it spiritual like growth, like you've risen above other people. It's more stepping out of the illusion and learning to watch. The ego was created. I guess I've read too much Eckhart Tolle. The ego is created to protect you. So
Yep.
it's going to go on those little tangents and fight reality and fight what it sees in the world and try to be right. And if you can kind of get step towards source, and the other thing I was going to say, there is no distance. You can do it instantaneously
Mhm.
Mm.
and just step away from it and go, hey, watch, my brain's doing this crazy thing over here, but that's not real. And you're instantly with God and with source. Like there's
Mhm.
no distance. Anyway,
Mm.
that was all I was going to say.
Yep. Well, that goes back to what I was saying. I mean, I know this is like just sounds crazy to a lot of people listening, but my realization is like there actually is no time or space, that it's an illusion, which then would mean there's no distance because there's no travel necessary to get to God because God is here and now, you know.
Right.
Yeah. But
It always feels like
we
we need to
create
get
the
somewhere.
it's like we create the whole narrative for fun. Like it's fun to have stories and characters and adventures and things are happening and like it's fun, but then we forget that it's for fun and then we lose who we really are and then it's horrible, you know, if you think that that's all there is and that's reality, it's a horrible existence, you know, to be lost in separation and division and feel like you're so distant and far from God and who you really are and
Mm-hmm.
but then you realize, oh, it's just a dream. And that's the awakening. That's why it's called waking up. And I like your point about the ego also. You know, it's definitely easy to make the ego like the, you know, the evil thing we must crush, but that's not the solution. It's just seeing it for what it is. You know, I think of it as the way I like to define it is the illusionary sense of separation, right? So it's like, yeah, I'm Brian and you know, I live in this house and you know, Virginia and I'm a life coach and you know, you can go through the whole story and it's fine, you know, but it's not who you really are. It's not the absolute essence of who you really are. So as long it's just like recognizing that and then the same when you interact with other people. It's like you're interacting with a story of them, but it's not who they really are, you know. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the key. You're only ever interacting with the one. It's true.
That's awesome.
And he says, boom.
It's humbling. It's humbling if
Yeah. Maybe that is enough said.
Well, it's kind of like you used to say, Brian, you can always change your story.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, but you can only change your story if you realize it's a story, right? That's the thing. Like if you think like, oh, this is my reality, then you're stuck. And it's then again, see, I think this was really interesting too, is the reason that when something feels really bad or it feels kind of really horrible or you know, it feels painful or it feels like what I've come to realize is like it feels that way because it's not true. You know, we're living a life that's not aligned with truth and reality. And again, like Jacob said, like, you know, God designed the body and made the body to give us the proper feedback for when we're living in a lie or we're living in reality, we're living in truth. And so the more that we start to trust the body and like use it as this like finely tuned instrument that's intelligent and can guide us and lead us and direct us, it'll tell us when we're on the right track or on the wrong track. So great stuff, everybody. I love this. I love having this be more interactive, more live, more vibrant. I'm gonna, you know, I think we'll go more in this direction. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to invite your friends. Feel free to, you know, throw out different things you're exploring that you want to explore with the group. That's what I see us doing here, and really grateful and appreciative to be sharing it. A couple of brief announcements. So Annie and I will be leading a breath work with John and Kathy Stringer. John will be leading um, live music. That's next Saturday in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'll have a links for the stuff in the playback. Um, or if you just message me personally, I can give you the information as well. Then we have a personal, sorry, not a personal. we are offering personal retreats and personal sessions at our place now in Southwest Virginia. So you can reach out for that. That's been really awesome. It's kind of my vision was for it to be like a healing sanctuary in a space, and I think it's really becoming that now. So that feels exciting and wonderful to be co-creating that space. And then we're going to have a one-day group retreat Saturday, November 16th here. For those of you in Asheville, we're just about 2 hours from Asheville. For those of you other places, I can tell you how far you are if you tell me where we are. But we're near Abington, Virginia, is where the property is located. We do have a men's mastermind group that a few of the fellows here are in. We have our New Year's retreat coming up at New Year's in Black Mountain, North Carolina. It'd be great to see some of these guys who were there last year. Again, that's an annual thing that we do. And Patreon. You can use Patreon to support this group and keep it happening. I think that's it. Great stuff. So much love and appreciation for all of y'all. Thanks for your contributions and co-creating this incredible space. Let's carry the energy forward with us the rest of the week, and see you all next Thursday night.
See y'all.
Peace.
See you. Bye, Jeff.